Hey everyone! Welcome back to another episode of our Magicavoxel tutorial series. Today we're diving deep into lighting in Magicavoxel. By the end of this video, you'll be tweaking lights like a pro. No more guessing what each setting does. Whether it's the sun, sky, fog, or reflections, we're gonna break it all down. So let's say you already finished with your model and you want to get into lighting. So in order to do that, we're gonna select render right here, go into render. That's where you can have access to your light panel. As you can see, we have our light panel right here. First up, we have sun. Think of this as your main light, just like the sun in the real world. First, we have angle. These lighters move the sun's direction in your scene, so you can change the sun's position. Changing this one, move the light up and down. And this other one, left and right. This affects where shadows appear. For example, setting a low angle creates longer dramatic shadows, like during sunset or sunrise. Next, we have area. Area controls how soft or hard your shadow is gonna be. The higher the number, the softer your shadows are gonna be. The lower the number, the harder the shadows. So to demonstrate that better, let's set an angle right here for our sun. I'm gonna zoom in for you guys to see better. As I said, the lower the number, the sharper and harder the shadows are gonna be. And if I crank up the number all the way up, you're almost left with, there is still shadows, but it's very soft, maybe more like a cloudy day. So sunny day, full on sunny day, and cloudy day. Next, we have intensity. This one adjusts the brightness of your sunlight. So if you have higher values, it's gonna make your sun really bright. And if you have lower values, it's gonna have like a dimmer light, creating a moody or like an evening kind of effect. This little thing that you see here, it changes your sunlight color. By default, sunlight is white here, but you can change its color for different moods. For example, if you want to go a little bit warmer, maybe a little bit colder, or even something alien-like, depending on the scene, you can change the color of your sunlight right here. For this scene, I'm thinking maybe let's set our sun, something that is not too flat. I don't want it to be that much of a sunny day, also not cloudy, so something in the middle would be nice right here. For now, I think the color of our sunlight is good. The last thing I want to tell you guys in sun section is this disc right here. If it's on, it means you can actually see your sun. So to show you guys that, I'm gonna go into perspective mode. And you just have to rotate around your scene to be able to find your sun. I think it's all the way up. Yes, it's right here, as you can see. So I'm gonna somehow move it around, bring it into our scene so you guys can see our sun right here. So imagine if you want to create like a moody sunset scene with the sun actually showing in your scene, this is how you can do it. As you can see, our sun right here is white, so I'm just gonna change the color a little bit, make it a little bit more yellowish. When you have the area all the way up, your sun's gonna appear bigger and your shadows are gonna be softer. But if you want harder shadows and smaller sun, you're gonna have to lower the value of area. So as you can see, this area is responsible for softness and hardness of your shadow and the size of your sun. Moving on to the next one, we have sky. The sky setting doesn't just control the background color, it actually affects how light behaves in your scene. And you have 3 different modes to play with when it comes to sky. We have uniform lighting, we have atmospheric scattering, and we have image-based lighting, IBL, or HDRI, as it's more common in other applications as well. But here it's called image-based lighting, IBL. So I'm gonna go through from the first one and I'm gonna explain to you what it does. So just to explain to you guys what exactly sky does, I'm gonna turn off my sunlight completely. And as you can see, even when my light source, which is my sun, is all the way off, we still have a little bit of illumination, which is coming from sky. This has a color influence over your scene. So even if your light source and shadows are removed, the sky color still tints your scene slightly. So basically, the sky acts as a global light source and it affects the overall brightness of your scene. Even without a directional sun, a bright sky can keep things well lit, as you can see right here. So if I go all the way down, you're gonna have nothing. Also, if you have reflective materials like metal or glass, the sky will actually show up in reflections, as you can see right here. Even if you don't see a background, the lighting information from the sky is still affecting how reflections appear. Just as you could change the color of the sun, you can also change the color of your sky. You can make it more like a blue, colder tone, or more warmer, or even more alien, or something like the late night kind of lighting, moody. I'm gonna turn back on my sun. So to see how it acts, how sun and sky work together, just see what's gonna happen when I lower down the intensity of sky. What you're left with is just harsh sunlight with harsh shadows without any illumination in these parts. These parts are the parts that sun is not hitting. So to fill that in, to have this kind of global illumination kind of lighting, you have to increase the intensity of your sky. It really depends on you. You can lower it down to have harsher shadows. You can increase it more to have softer ones. You can even, like having your sun on, you can change the color of your shadows. So it's gonna change the color of your shadows. The places that are bouncing the light on, you can see how it changes the color. I'm not touching my sunlight color, it's still the same, but you can see in the shadows, this is how it's affected by this color, by the color of the sky. So it's really good to tweak with all of this. Next, we have atmospheric scattering. This mode simulates real-world skylighting, making the environment feel more realistic. It affects how your light interacts with the atmosphere, creating effects like blue skies, haze, and color shifts. So let's go step by step. First of all, we have Rayleigh. This one is responsible for how blue your sky is. I'm gonna go to perspective mode so you can see the sky better. So if you lower down the Rayleigh, you're gonna have a blue sky, like a clear day. The lower values gives you bluer skies, similar to a clear day. And as you go higher, it has less blue, more neutral kind of skies. like during sunrise or sunset. So also here you can change the color of your sky. Let's keep it blue for now. Next we have me, if I'm saying it right. This one adjusts haze and atmospheric fog. This happens due to a larger particles in the air when you have fog, dust or pollution. So when you increase it, it's gonna create that same effect in real world. Let me lower the sun maybe again so you can see better. The lower values, you're gonna have a more crisp, clear air. The higher the value, you have more stuff going on in your atmosphere. Ozone changes the color balance of the sky. So if you have higher values, it's gonna add a bit of purple and blue to your sky. And if you have lower values, it will make it warmer and more neutral, closer to the real life. So if you want a realistic kind of scene, you can have it all the way down. If you have something more specific, more unique, maybe again like an alien world, this is what you want to go for. Next, we have image-based lighting or HDRI. HDRI mode, which is something that I tend to use most of the time when I'm doing my scenes, because instead of using just a simple color or a gradient for the sky, it loads an actual 360 degrees high resolution environment image, which makes your lighting more natural and more realistic. So basically what HDRI does, it wraps around your scene like a giant realistic sky dome. As you can see, when I rotate around my scene, you can see it's all over. Key settings for HDRI or image-based lighting, short IBL, you have intensity, you have rotation, and you have the image right here. So the intensity, just like the other ones, controls how bright the HDR lighting is. Let me turn down the intensity of my sun. So we're just getting, as you can see, there is no light in our scene. So if I increase the intensity of my image, it controls how bright your HDR is lighting your scene. Rotation adjusts the angle of the HDRI, changing where the light and reflections hit your scene. And next we have HDRI image preview, which displays currently loaded HDRI map, so you can see what's influencing your lighting. And this is the name. As I mentioned before, I get my HDRIs free from Polyhaven, which I will again link in the description below. You can have high quality HDRIs environments that you can download and use. You can have natural lights, low contrast, high contrast. You can also make your own HDRIs. If you're into photography, you can actually create your own HDRI images using a 360-degree camera by stitching multiple photos together. This way, you can light your voxel scenes using your own custom-made environments. So to access your HDRI or to import a new one, you just simply click on the picture right here and it brings up the folder. You have IBL folder in your Magicavoxel location. So you can just simply put all the HDRI you download and put it in folder, or you can just access it through your own folders right here. And then from there, it's just a matter of switching up to see what works best for your scene. When you're in orthographic camera, you can't really see the details of your HDRI, if you want to see or even use it as a background for your scene, you have to be either in perspective or free camera mode. This is how I do some first-person kind of shots, having a background actually. I just use that HDRI as my background. You can adjust the intensity, so if you have lower value, it's gonna be darker. If you have higher value, it's gonna be brighter. And then you can rotate your HDRI around the scene to pick a good angle for your light. But this is not what I'm looking for right now. I want something with more harsh shadows. Partly cloudy sky with some greenery around. I usually don't render my scenes in perspective mode. It's just a personal choice. I just like this view way better than perspective. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this HDR right here. How it's hitting the house, how it's highlighting, how it's illuminating my scene. It's like a really happy sunny day in this little villa here. For example, if you want to have a night scene, it's actually really kind of cute. If I want to make it better, maybe I just lower the intensity of it a little bit, rotate it to a better angle. And maybe just create a moonlight kind of effect. Make the shadows softer a little bit. So yeah, as you can see, it's just a matter of playing settings, just experiment with them and see what you like, see what's your preference, what you like the best. It's just with experimenting that you're gonna find what you like and what matches your scene the best. But honestly, in my opinion, definitely try out using HDR images and see how it completely changes the feel of your scene and how suddenly it just becomes so much more realistic. I think I'm really happy with this lighting. Next, we move on to fog section. As it's really obvious by the name, it just creates fog in your scene. The higher the density is, the thicker the fog's gonna be. Let me put back my sun to white. You can also set the color of your fog. And phase controls how fog interacts with light. Make it feel soft and dreamy or more dramatic and more intense. So you just have to play with it. So far we covered every section in our light panel. Next, we're going to sample panel. This section controls how light bounces around your scene, affecting shadows, reflections, and how realistic things look. We start by diffuse. Diffuse decides how many times light bounces off surfaces before it fades out. So more bounces means a brighter scene. So for example, if I lower down my diffuse all the way down, you can see my light hits the surface and there's zero bouncing. If I set it up to 2, you can already see an improvement in my shadow. Light is bouncing around my scene and it's actually hitting the parts in the shadow as well. When you go to 5, it lights up the scene a little bit more, makes it more realistic, brighter. But honestly, above this, I don't see much difference between those, and it just makes the render heavier because it has to calculate light bouncing around the scene more, so it just increases your render time. So I usually keep it at 5. Next, we have a specular. So if you have glass, metal, or water, or any reflective surfaces, this is how you can take control of that. This controls how many times light reflects inside your reflective material. So I'm going to show you guys quickly what I mean by that. Just imagine you have multiple layers of reflective and transparent glass. So specular comes in handy here. So if you have lower values, light bounces and reflections are gonna cut off quickly. So glass looks too dark over here. But when you increase the value of specular, you can see that light goes deeper, letting you see through multiple layers of glass. So it really depends on what you're working with. If you have multiple layers of glass or you need to see it better, you can increase this value. But I also usually keep this as default because it doesn't happen that often that I have multiple layers of glass or something. So for example here, this is the only surface that I'm using glass for. I'm using a reflective transparent material. So as you can see, it doesn't make much difference right now. So I'm just gonna keep it at 5, which is gonna help me with my render time. Okay, move on to the next one, scatter. Scatter mostly affects cloud, fog, and translucent objects. Increasing scatter doesn't change much unless combined with a cloud or transparent shader. And then we have energy. Energy determines how bright the light bounces are. So if you increase the value of the energy, it means each bounce of light will stay brighter for longer before it fades. But honestly, personally, I don't mess with these settings much. When you crank it up, you don't really see a huge difference in the end, but it does slow down rendering. So most of the time, I just stick with the default values since they already work well. And that's it for lighting. Now you know how to control the sun, sky, fog, reflections, and shadows to make your scene look just right. I didn't want to talk about sample right now because I felt like this video is getting too technical and less interesting. So in the next one, we just focus on material and the sample panel right here. Hope this helped you level up your scene and get a better understanding of lighting. If you have any questions or feedback, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It really helps support the channel and keeps these tutorials coming. Thanks for watching and see you soon.